Everyone joining us today for the Power of Pennovation Works Company Showcase. We're really excited to have everybody here and excited to have this week of celebrating our 5-year anniversary. It's been such a great ride for all of us, and we've really enjoyed the progress and the journey and have so much of the future yet to come. We're really excited about where things are headed for the campus and for all of our companies in the portfolio. What we thought we would do today is have some of our exciting young companies give you a little perspective on their company themselves and the time that they've spent here on our campus. So we are really happy to have them. Well, we'll lead things off and we'll start things right away with Jiang, who is the CEO of Avisi Technologies. I'll let you take it from here, Jing.
Thank you, Michael, and hello, everyone. Very happy to be here with you. Let me just share my screen. My name is Jiang, and I'm co-founder and CEO of Avisi Technologies. Happy to tell you a little bit about our journey at Pennovation and what we're up to. Okay, we have really thrived at Pennovation. We joined the community in the summer of 2018 with the President's Innovation Prize from the University of Pennsylvania. This was a project grant that came with a startup garage space in the Pennovation Center that has since been supporting our development of a next generation treatment for glaucoma that we call VisiPlate. So we have a bench here and we have our startup garage, and we're working to treat glaucoma, which is the world's leading cause of irreversible blindness. Since 2018, we've grown from 2 people to 6 people in our space. We've been able to demonstrate safety and proof of concept of our device in preclinical animal models, and we're currently in a clinical trial. We've raised $3.3 million in seed funding and will be raising $10 million to support US clinical trials. And of course, we wouldn't be able to do it if not for the Pennovation Center. So this is actually what the view looks like if you have glaucoma. Quite different if you don't have glaucoma, which is how we might typically interact with the world. So I'd love to tell you a little bit about the disease and our device VisiPlate. Glaucoma is the world's leading cause of irreversible blindness, as I mentioned, and it affects over 100 million people worldwide. Normally, our eyes are producing and cycling a fluid called aqueous humor, but in eyes with glaucoma, the drainage system is blocked. This leads to intraocular pressure building up and damaging the optic nerve. Unfortunately, reducing this eye pressure is the only way to prevent progression of glaucoma. We're initially targeting patients with moderate to severe disease who require a surgical intervention to get lower IOPs for longer. There are about 2.6 million of these patients in the United States today. Unfortunately, treatments for these patients fail by occluding with scar tissue, or they're very large and invasive. To give you a little bit of insight, we have trabeculectomies, which are a golden standard surgery where a piece of tissue is taken out of the eye. But post-op complications can happen like overly low pressure, infection, scarring, bleeding, and leaking. We have minimally invasive glaucoma surgeries, which are a thin tube, the length and thickness of an eyelash, but these can clog, scar, and migrate. Lastly, we have tube shunts, which are a large drainage plate, the size and surface area of a nickel sitting in your eye with a drainage tube. They're very invasive, and complications include double vision or tissue erosion. So with all this in mind, we developed VisiPlate, an ultra-thin shunt designed to avoid occlusion. We do this by using non-fibrotic materials, having a multi-channel design to create an outflow redundancy, and having a surface area to maintain the drainage space over time. We're ultra-thin, 5 microns. You can see it just barely balanced here on this finger, and that's 20 times thinner than a human hair. What's interesting is that our patented technology ensures handleability despite our small scale. Our unique design will maintain lower IOPs over time. VisiPlate is bottle-shaped with a neck and a body. The body sits in the subconjunctival space. That's between the clear layer of tissue in your eye and the thick white layer. The neck sits just between the cornea and the iris, and pent-up aqueous can drain through multiple channels in VisiPlate's neck onto the body, which physically maintains a drainage space over time, collecting that fluid, allowing it to be reabsorbed into surrounding tissue, reducing pressure within the globe, and protecting the optic nerve. We've been able to demonstrate safety and proof of concept in preclinical rabbit models. We use rabbits because they have very similar ocular anatomy to humans, but they're more irritable. So we implanted 6 New Zealand white rabbits with VisiPlate and monitored their intraocular pressures for a period of 3 months. We saw a significant reduction without the use of an antifibrotic drug from a baseline of 15 millimeters mercury. And this significant reduction between 20 and 40% significantly exceeds the FDA's threshold for performance, which is 20% IOP reduction from baseline. We also saw excellent biocompatibility in a 180-day rabbit study. This leads us now to a very exciting stage of our life cycle. We are in our first clinical trial, and supporting this effort is my team. So Gary Pruden is the former worldwide chairman of medical devices from Johnson & Johnson, and he sits on our board. Georgia Griggs is our vice president of R&D. She's an engineer with a background in semiconductor manufacturing and nanotechnology. Barry Cheskin is a strategic advisor, former CEO and co-founder of PowerVision, which made intraocular lenses for cataract surgery acquired by Alcon, and many more. Of course, we wouldn't be here without our clinical advisors. Dr. Edie Miller-Ellis, Director of Glaucoma at Shea Eye Institute, University of Pennsylvania. Dr. Rick Lewis, the past president of the American Glaucoma Society. Dr. Ike Ahmed, who pioneered the field of minimally invasive glaucoma surgery. Dr. Vance Thompson, and Dr. Jonathan Myers from Wills Eye Hospital. So where to next? From Pennovation to patient impact, we are delighted to be residents at Pennovation, and after our first in-man clinical trial, we'll be working towards our pivotal US clinical trial to support a 510(k) application and market launch. That's all I have for you today. Again, we're so happy to be here, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Jing. Maybe before we go to our next speaker, we could just hear from you on what it's been like to be in the Pennovation Center, and kind of maybe any stories you have of your time here and experiences.
Absolutely. One of the most memorable experiences was the launch of the Johnson & Johnson J-Pod Accelerator. I remember we had faculty come from Penn, representatives from Johnson & Johnson, and even a Ben Franklin impersonator. And I just remember it being such a vibrant event where we got to network with a lot of the other life science companies in the community. So things like that, I think, make Pennovation really special. Community building events too. I really liked when we did Thanksgiving, community dinners, which was a lot of fun, and Thanksgiving's coming up again. So maybe we can do that if we can support that given the pandemic environment. But things like that, I think being part of a co-working space where you're constantly walking around, seeing people work really hard on their dreams and aspirations, it's very, very inspiring.
That's great. And you're a member of the J-Pod. Has that worked out well for you?
Yeah, it's been great. We are able to connect with our mentors in the lovely conference room space. We really like it.
That's fantastic. That's great. So now, unless anybody else has any questions, feel free to jump in. Otherwise, we will move on to our next speaker. Our next speaker is the CEO of Dorothy. That would be Arianna Armelli. Here comes Arianna.
Hi, everyone.
She has been with Pennovation for quite some time. She was a part of the Pennovation and Summer Accelerator, which is an accelerator run by Jamie Sweet every summer, where she invites local companies in to get definitely some acceleration help and guidance and mentoring from her and our team, and certainly other mentors as well around the area. She does a great job putting it together. And Arianna won, I believe, in 2018, and has continued from there to build her company. And she's been a great part of the center, and we all love to have her around. So with that, I'll hand it off to Arianna. She can give you more about Dorothy.
I'm actually just having one difficulty bringing up my deck for a second. So if you just give me
Zoom without some amount of challenges. Right?
I just switched computers to a Mac from a Surface, so I'm having a little bit. Okay, wait a minute. I think I got it. Sorry about that. Let me share my screen. All right, you can see, right? Great. So thanks so much for having me. My name's Arianna Armelli. I am a co-founder and CEO at Dorothy, and we are focused on streamlining the recovery process for anyone who experiences an unexpected event. Severe weather events like floods, fires, power grid failures, and now, unfortunately, pandemics are increasing. And on average, federal and private insurance providers are settling about 5 million insurance claims each year. That can total anywhere from about 55 billion to 300 billion in cash payouts, all associated with natural disaster events. The issue for covered property owners is that they're forced to wait months to receive their payments and essentially finance their own recovery until that claim is settled. This is due to a tremendous backlog on the carrier side. So when the event occurs, you'll have hundreds of residents filing claims all at once. Insurers can't manage the overflow and rely on physical human beings to visit these sites and essentially confirm that damage occurred. In turn, this can delay payment times by about 3 or more months. And for most Americans affected, that financing gap is way too large a burden to bear for them. So we thought, well, what if there was a way to help property owners recover faster? We know they're insured. We know that they receive a claim payment at some point in the near future. Can we fill the financing gap until they receive their settlement by using data? So we built Dorothy. It's a solution designed to streamline the recovery process by offering property owners transparent cash advancements secured by their insurance policy settlement rather than their credit score or their cash flow. So this allows us to offer reasonable interest rates on immediate cash, which ultimately helps to mitigate the economic burden families are experiencing during disaster. In order to quantify the right amount of cash, we developed a 3-stage underwriting methodology. We review our users' existing policy coverage limits and exclusions. We then identify the average recovery cost based on how the property is built, so the structural information associated with it. And then we review historical settlement amounts based on the location to generate an immediate cash advancement quote for our users. Once that user is qualified, we can issue payments within a couple of days rather than months. So moving forward, we're now working to build a platform that, in addition to cash, also offers a network of disaster-aligned service providers. So companies like debris removal specialists, roof repair specialists, licensed contractors, flood remediation companies, you name it. We know that navigating the preparation and recovery process is difficult, so we're aiming to simplify that entire experience for our users. We launched our beta back in August, and it was actually a couple weeks before Hurricane Ida swept through the East Coast. And then once that storm was hitting, we saw about a 400% increase in our users onboarding for our service during that storm. We spoke with hundreds of families who were forced to live in hotels for that month and who were all waiting for insurance payments to start coming through. So what we found is that there was a tremendous amount of gratitude once we started issuing these advancements and identifying the problems, not just associated with cash, but the services involved with helping to recover. So where does Pennovation come into all this? I started the company as a solo founder when I graduated in 2018. I was interested in flood modeling and how better data could influence the way in which consumers understand disaster risk. I wasn't really sure how that translated into a business or even a company. So it was by chance that I saw an email for the first Pennovation accelerator in my inbox. And I thought, you know, this would probably be a good opportunity for me to explore this company. So through the accelerator, I was able to identify at least the first business model that we started to pursue, which was really a flood modeling company. I was able to present that at South by Southwest through an I-Corps grant that I also got through the program. And then that ultimately got me in front of some of the top executives at FEMA, which led me then into the insurance industry, which ultimately I realized where the gaps were on that side of things, and then identified the true problem in which a lot of property owners are facing. So it's not just data, and it wasn't really providing more insurance, but it was really a combination or a hybrid business of understanding how to get payments out quicker and how to use data in order to understand how insurance carriers were viewing risk. So I'm not a solo founder anymore. We're actually a team of 5, and we're probably going to be expanding in the coming weeks. We just closed our seed round earlier this month, so I'm super excited about that. It was a really long journey to get to this point, but I have a lot of people to thank who are in this Zoom meeting right now. So things are going well. I'm super excited about where the company is headed, and it's no longer just me. Now we have a large team. But thanks so much for having me, and any questions you have, I'm happy to answer.
So we'll see if anyone in the audience has questions, but I can kind of lead things off. So maybe talk to us a little bit about the challenge of starting a company on your own and what that was like, and hopefully how the Pennovation Center could help in regards to that. Because, as we all know, anybody starting a company can be a lonely job and very difficult. And I just wonder kind of what that journey was like for you.
Yeah, I think for me, it was definitely difficult just to make the decision on starting the company. But when I ran the idea through at least Jordana when she was there and a couple other folks about thinking about even applying, and I presented it, I felt a lot of a comfort and support just even in those early conversations with, you should just give it a try. If it doesn't work out, that's great, but at least you tried it. And then, after the accelerator, I never once felt alone, even though I was still a solo founder. I always had a number of people I could go to at any point in time who would take my questions and sit with me and talk through ideas. So I think having the Pennovation Center there through that initial year and a half where I really didn't know what I was doing kind of kept me going to this point. So I'm really grateful and happy that I stuck it through.
Well, that's fantastic. And so what do you see as the future of Dorothy? How far do you take this?
That's a good question. I mean, right now we're working towards, we're a financing company at the moment, but I would say the grand vision is really to understand how to better prepare homeowners for any type of situation, but also provide the tools for when something happens in terms of recovery services, as well as the financing. So I don't know what that looks like yet. We're working on it piece by piece, but really the idea and the vision here is to simplify something that we know is going to continue to happen and to help people better prepare for it and build a healthy business around that. So
I would think with the concerns about climate change that you are well positioned to see your business, unfortunately, continue to expand.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is a comment that comes up. They're like, "Well, do you do better if the climate gets worse?" And I mean, in theory, yes, but I still don't know how to go about that, because it's like, well, if we don't do anything about it, then there are no solutions. So
yeah, you're just here to try to help people deal with what's happening in the current climate. It's there's nothing we can do right now, but the near term, we've all got to be looking much further out to try to solve our problems, right?
Yep.
Well, that's great. If anybody else has any questions for Arianna?
I have a question.
Okay. Otherwise, we'll move on. Thank you for that. It's a great discussion of your company.
Thanks.
Next, we will be moving on to Verge Aero, and we'll be speaking to the co-founders, Tony Samaritano.
Samaritano. It's close.
Apologize. But Verge Aero has been in the building, gosh, for almost, I think, from the beginning. And we've loved having the team and watching the company develop. And so we'd love to have everybody else get a chance to learn more about them and their experience here at Pennovation Works campus.
Great. Thank you. Trying to share my screen right now. All right. There we go. All right. Cool. All right. So I'm just going to put this on a loop while I introduce myself. So my name is Tony Samaritano. I'm one of the technical co-founders of Verge. And what Verge does is builds drone light show technology. So you can see my screen, right? Michael, I'm assuming.
Yeah,
you can.
I'm sorry. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so if you don't know what a drone light show is, this is an example of one. So this is our logo. It's about 250 drones, and it's flying over the Santa Monica Pier in LA. So just so you can see, it's a bunch of drones flying in coordination, spelling shapes and 3D effects in the sky. So yeah, so the way that we see, what Verge's vision is we see drone light shows as the future of fireworks. So on the right side of my screen here, this is a show that we did for President-elect Biden at the time. And what it really does is highlights the differences between drones and fireworks. So this is the first show that we did along with fireworks, but the way that we see the future of this industry evolving is I think for most cases, drones will actually completely replace fireworks, but I think that they have a really good creative potential when they're used properly together. So where drones aren't replacing fireworks in the future, they'll be used in the same shows. So that is Verge's vision, and what we're doing is building a full stack. So we build the drones, we build the design software, and everything in between. So we're completely vertically integrated. Yeah, and the business model today is right now we are providing high-end services and the actual technology. So we have a lot of companies that are on board already. I think like 8 companies around the world own fleets of our drones. We're scaling up. By the end of the year, we should have around 2,000 drones distributed across the world. And at the moment, you can see here's some examples of some shows that we've done in the past year, some stuff for Disney, Biden. We did a show with Justin Bieber and so forth. So right now we're focusing on the high end of the market and working directly with the people that and the professionals that we're providing the technology to. But in the future, what we want to do is kind of be what, Boeing, the airline creator is, or the airplane builder is to the airline industry. We want to just be providing the technology to service providers that then will do what you see out in the world here. And we take a step back and just focus on making distributing the technology and really growing this industry over the course of time. So what I want to do in this presentation is really highlight the impact that Pennovation has had on our journey. Like Michael said, we've been around here for a while. I think we've been in the offices. You can see our first office that we had, one of the garages in 2017. And then even this video here, this is a video of the first 3, like our first drone swarm flying in the net outside. So by a flying swarm, I mean 3 drones just doing a hover, but that was like the first proof of concept of the new system, which is basically what we're flying today. And then just some stuff. Here's a picture of one of my other technical co-founders, Anthony, with a bunch of prototype drones in the back of his car. And the story of Verge is really like a David and Goliath type story. When we first started, we had this vision for swarms of drones, and we were thinking like 25 drones at the same time, doing some cool stuff. And then Intel, the chip maker, started flying hundreds of drones at the same time. And that made us go grab some venture funding. We secured some seed capital, started working at Pennovation, and then built the system that we're actively flying today, starting with those roots back in 2016 and 2017. Okay, go to the next slide here. So in 2017 and 18, we developed the system. And then at the end of 2019, we built our first drones, our first drone fleet, and actually started proving it out in Dubai. And then when we came back in 2019, we actually started to commercialize the technology, and we were getting some good results, mostly festivals and large scale events. And then this is an example of a music video that we did that really highlights the drones potential here, just for lighting in like a dark music video. This is Pennow. They're a Australian like techno band, and this video turned out really well. But yeah, we started there in 2019, and 2020 was looking fantastic. We had a bunch of festivals and everything lined up. We had Coachella in the books, ready to go, and then 2020 hit, and literally all of our business went away. Like overnight in March, we went from like a lot of potential revenue to 0, literally overnight. So this is where I really wanted to highlight, like obviously Pennovation and Penn really helped us get to this point in 2020. But where they really shined, and what I really want to highlight here, is the collaboration and how willing they were to work with us when we were struggling at that moment. So at the beginning of COVID, we were really inspired by videos that we saw of people cheering on healthcare workers while they were switching shifts at hospitals. So we were like, well, our drones aren't doing anything. Let's do something special for people on Penn's campus. So we worked with Pennovation and we worked with Penn, and we flew out of Franklin Field during essentially like a shift change, and brought first responders and people from the hospitals out to do a show for them and say thank you. And with Pennovation's help and Penn's help, this is probably the most, I love this show the most out of all the shows that we've done, just because of the impact that it had on people. And the video ended up going viral with the help, again, of Penn and Pennovation, pushing this out to their networks. You know, it had like somewhere around like 5 million views. And this really ended up relaunching the company, and in a different direction. We thought that Verge would just be servicing large festivals and big live events. But what this video actually proved to the world was that corporate clients could come in, they could put their logo in the sky, they could record it without anybody there, and then distribute it over social media to really make a splash in the tech community, and had a lot of viral potential. So without Penn, I honestly think that Verge might have died at that moment, because our entire business model was built on, it was entirely built on live events, large scale live events. So I'm gonna leave it there. The final words here is just, you know, now that live events are back, here's a video that we did a couple of weeks ago. This was at EDC in Las Vegas, and we flew 600 drones with our system, which was a big milestone for us. And you know, the future is bright. We're moving forward. We're getting more and more people buying into our system, and we're doing larger and bigger events. So yeah, I guess I'll leave it there.
That's amazing. Thank you, Tony. As you guys fly more and more drones, it's almost like pixels that you're getting more and more defined in terms of what you can do. And this latest one is absolutely stunning.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it was crazy too, and it was 3 straight days, so 3 nights in a row we did the same content. And one of the nights I was actually, because I never really get to do this, I was actually able to go into the crowd and watch it live with everybody, and man, the feedback was just crazy. Like you literally have like 50,000 people standing like just spellbound with their phones up going, "Oh my God, are you seeing this?" So it was really, really cool for us. Really cool for me to see that as well, and all the other founders.
So logistically, that must be a real challenge when you're getting up to that many drones. Like even just, we just had somebody ask the question, now, how do you get all these drones to the event and orchestrate them and manage them on the ground?
Yeah, I mean, that's like literally 95% of the job is the logistics side of it. The drones that we currently have, they're fairly large and pretty heavy. So, you know, to get 600 drones on site for EDC, it's, yeah, I don't know, we're probably talking like 15,000 pounds of cargo that needs to get out there. And it was like probably like a 10-person team working full time for at least a week to make that happen. So yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Wow, you wonder if that could be the biggest challenge to going to like 1,000 drones or even more, right?
Yeah.
Just logistics of it all.
Yeah, yeah, definitely logistics at that scale. I would say, you know, like when we're talking about normal shows, like our normal shows are like 150 to 200 drones. And that you could actually do with like a team of 3 or 4 and do it in one night. But yeah, we're seeing it does not scale linearly, we've found.
That's fantastic. So I'm curious, when you talk about, you know, replacing fireworks, obviously, you know, the amount of detail and what you can do easily surpasses them. I guess I wonder though, and I'm sure probably right now your cost is higher, but can you eventually get to where a regular fireworks show might be of a similar cost to what you guys could do?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's really the real mission of Verge is like, we want to make this approachable and we want to make it economical. And right now you're completely right. It's probably like 5 times the cost of fireworks at the same scale. But we definitely have a path to reducing the cost to at least needing fireworks. And I think once you hit that point, there's just no going back. I mean, we hear this over and over again after people watch our show. They're like, how can we watch fireworks again after seeing that? So yeah, it's at this point, it's all about optimization. And that's probably the next 4 or 5 years of the company is just optimizing to the point where it's cost competitive with fireworks.
Well, I think that's an admirable goal, but when you think about just from a safety standpoint and the experience standpoint, you know, this is a premium product, and I would think that you probably don't have to get all the way down to the cost of fireworks to be competitive.
No, I think you're completely right. I think you're right. Like there should be a cost premium for this, for sure. I just have to see how it all evolves. I'd like to see these pretty much every day. Anywhere that fireworks is traditionally, I think these will be there, and hopefully replace them in most cases, especially because they're, more environmentally friendly, reusable. They're not loud, and just the creative potential is exponentially higher than fireworks could ever be.
Yeah, certainly my kids, when they were little, couldn't stand the noise of fireworks. So
Yeah.
little kids will absolutely love this.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. This is great, and it's awesome for all of us at Pennovation to see the progress that you've made over the years and where you guys are today. And we're so appreciative of being a part of your journey to help push this forward.
Thank you. Yeah, and like I said, I think Verge would be dead without you guys. So, like, there's a very, very strong chance that without that COVID show, we probably would have had to shut the doors. So,
Oh, that's so fantastic.
Mhm.
That's really great. Well, good. I think unless we have any further questions, we will end that one. And I wanted to go back, if Arianna is still on here. We had a question from Mary Frances that she wanted to ask. If we could open her mic so she could ask Arianna a question. If not, you can type it in the chat and we'll bring it up.
Can you hear me?
Barely. That's a little better. Go ahead.
Okay, I was just curious why you named your company Dorothy.
I can't hear the question.
Yeah.
Can you type it and I'll answer it now?
Yeah, we can try that.
Oh.
Why did you name your company Dorothy? That's great. That's fantastic. I like that question.
We're dealing with homes and disasters, and there's no place like a safe home, so that's why we named it Dorothy. It's also really good for branding.
No, I've always loved the name. I think that's fantastic. I'm glad she asked that question. Excellent. Well, now we will move on to our next presentation, which will be from the co-founder of InnaMed, co-founder and CSO, Anup Singh. Anup, if you could join us. And we'd love to have you tell us more about your journey here at Pennovation. There he is. Great.
Okay. Yep. Hey, Michael. Thanks, everyone. Can you guys see my screen?
We can.
Okay, great. So I'm just gonna go through a little bit of an overview of InnaMed first, and then go through some company highlights and progress that we've made while been at Pennovation. So at InnaMed, we're developing a product called Home Lab, which, as the name suggests, enables lab testing in the home. In sum, we make monitoring and analyzing blood test data fast and simple. So we allow pharmaceutical companies, chronic disease management platforms, and digital health companies to have patients run labs at the home with just a simple API call. Here on the top right is a picture of our device, and then there are cartridge components as well, which house the specific tests that we're measuring. And this problem really stems from a long existing problem where blood monitoring is a key component for getting the right patients on the right therapies and at the right doses, right? You're probably familiar with patients who have diabetes who need to be monitoring their glucose levels to dose insulin. For a lot of other chronic conditions, patients need to be able to do a similar type of monitoring, but it is much more challenging due to limitations of technology and having to go in person frequently to get laboratory testing can be cumbersome for patients. And so as a result, a lot of lab orders are not filled, and so it leads to suboptimal monitoring, poor drug titration, and overall poor clinical outcomes for patients. And you see this problem, in sort of two main areas in clinical trials. So when therapies are being developed, Clinical trials often experience high dropout rates. It's very expensive for re-recruiting patients due to this non-compliance. And a lot of these clinical trials fail to finish on time because they have to keep cycling through patients. And one of the key barriers in those clinical trials is being able to closely monitor patients who are on new therapies. So whether it's a new therapy for COVID-19 or whether it's a new therapy for a particular immune condition, being able to monitor safety data in the form of blood testing is critical, but often can be a barrier for patients staying in the clinical trials. From a real world perspective, even once therapies are on the market, it's often difficult for healthcare providers to dose patients the same way that the dosing has been done in research, because they're unable to get those patients to come in frequently to get tested. And in particular, a lot of these patients already have multiple chronic conditions, so they're already fragile. And so whenever you're making a therapy change, you need to get that blood test data to make sure the patient's safe, make sure that the therapy is being effective. And so as a result, a lot of patients who should be on certain therapies are not on certain therapies. And you can imagine it's kind of a chicken and egg problem, right? If you don't put them on a certain drug, then they're going to have a worse outcome. If you do put them on it, but don't have access to their blood test data, you don't know if it's going to cause adverse side effects. And so, going from the beginning of the drug development process all the way through to the real world setting, blood testing is a key barrier to optimizing therapy management for patients. So the way our product works is very simple for patients. We've done clinical studies with patients all the way up to age 78. You initially have a cartridge, which is specific to the panel of tests that you're looking to measure. You insert that cartridge into the device. The device starts the calibration process, which takes a couple minutes. And during that time, the patient will self-draw using a FDA-cleared microneedle blood collector, which draws about 250 microliters of blood. So about six drops of blood, large enough sample to be able to do accurate testing. And after doing that blood draw, they just slot that tube into the cartridge. It pierces the top of the tube, pulls the blood sample in, and then runs the analysis. So from start to finish, it's about a 10 to 15-minute process, depending on the panel of tests. And then those results are directly transmitted to the healthcare provider who's managing that patient to be able to review that along with other relevant patient data to say, okay, this patient is eligible for changing therapy, putting them on new therapy, or they're just doing fine on their existing dose, we'll keep them at that. In addition to the blood test data, we also have software that allows patients to input symptoms, input dose values, be able to have direct integration of that data into the EMR systems to make it easier for the healthcare providers in the back end. And we want to make this as seamless as possible, right? In healthcare, the whole premise has always been putting the patient last. And I think now we're seeing a really big advent, especially driven by COVID, of bringing care to the home, bringing care to patients, and making patients have the best user experience to optimize their health. In terms of our company journey, we've been at Pennovation for I think almost 3 years now. I think late 2018, early 2019 is when we joined. And since then we came as a team of I think 4, and we're now a team of 14 at the end of this month. So we've grown significantly, and been very lucky to have ample space here at the Pennovation Center to grow. In this current building, and then starting our build out in the new building, which we'll hopefully be moving into at the start of next year. During that time, we've over full 2020, we generated over 1.4 million in revenue through a number of ongoing pharmaceutical partnerships. So we've really seen a lot of traction in utilizing our technology and our product, even in the earlier stages of development. We closed additional venture funding in the middle of this past year, which was followed by significant growth in headcount. Here was our team picture when we had some of we have 11 on-site employees and 3 remote. So we had our 3 remote employees come on site last week, which was a lot of fun getting to meet them all in person. You know, now with COVID, it's, you know, sometimes, you know, always sketchy to be able to have everyone on the same site, but we're fortunate to be able to have everyone come just for the week and meet everyone. And we're excited to be staying at the Pennovation campus. We've really enjoyed being here, and, you know, are going to be here for the foreseeable future, moving into the new space, like I mentioned at the start of the new year. So, you know, my co-founder and I, you know, sure, we've been at, you know, we did our undergrads at Penn. We've really enjoyed, you know, being able to have access here. And ultimately, I think one of the other big things which maybe hasn't been mentioned is I think the best part about Pennovation has really been, you know, being able to make this lab space affordable, you know, compared to other options in the city or other cities. We found that to really help us be able to, you know, draw talent and be able to expand appropriately, you know, as we've grown. So I'm happy to take questions, but that's a quick summary of InnaMed and where we're going.
Thanks, Anup. That's fantastic. And I guess I would just ask, you know, what have you seen as kind of the biggest challenge for you, and maybe, you know, where do you see yourself going from here in terms of a company?
Yeah, great question. So I think the biggest challenge is always, you know, making sure that we are planning, you know, far enough ahead, you know, for the next, I would say 6 months, making sure we have, you know, good setup for manufacturing. So we're in the process of vetting partners, not just for low volume manufacturing, but also for high volume, evaluating whether we want to do some stuff overseas versus, you know, in-house, and making sure we have the right facilities in place. So I would say, you know, sort of scaling the manufacturing is probably the biggest challenge moving forward. And then also, you know, working with the regulatory agencies. I think in particular, the division of the FDA that we're working with has been overwhelmed with COVID test reviews, rightly so. But that has led to a significant backlog in reviews where they're at the point where they're only reviewing right now at-home COVID tests. And so that backlog, I think, of, you know, all submissions and all pre-submissions is, I think, starting to, you know, they're starting to look at those now, but it has created a significant delay on the regulatory side too. But I would say that's a little bit more outside of our control. But the manufacturing is something we're really looking closely at, and how we can, you know, really do some stuff here on site at Pennovation now that we're going to be having larger space, as well as making sure we vet the right people, you know, in the US and potentially overseas.
Excellent. Well, that sounds great. Fantastic. So unless there's any other questions, we'll move on to our last company, which is IQ Motion Control. And we will have John Broome, CEO of IQ Motion Control, as our speaker. We're all interested to hear more about your company and your progress so far. Take it away, John.
Thanks, Michael. All right. Get my screen up here. You can see it? Great. So we are 2 years younger, 2 months younger than Pennovation. So we might be the longest lasting company so far. But as you guys can see on the screen, we make motors and controllers for robotic devices, specifically focusing on drones right now. I started the company with Matt Piccoli, who got his PhD on the 3rd floor of this building back in 2017. And our first office is now the mailroom. So it's pretty tiny, just the 2 of us crammed in there. And we have since moved across the parking lot to a space that now has 10 of us in there. So we've grown significantly since then, and hopefully a lot more growth to come. But what we do, again, is we make kind of commercial and defense grade motors and controllers for small aerial vehicles, like the one you see here, and like the one Tony uses for his air shows. And specifically what we do is we focus on making our product much higher end. And my screen is bugging out right now. Okay. So this industry, the drone industry, really evolved out of RC helicopters that have been around for quite some time. And all of that manufacturing got moved over to China about 30 years ago, just because it was so cheap to produce these things. So since then, China has had a huge advantage over any other country in terms of producing the components for these aerial vehicles. But they're very hobby grade. So even the highest end small drones right now are still using technology that is pretty much what you would use in an RC helicopter, which is crazy because, Tony's fleet probably costs $50,000 and some of these individual drones cost $50,000 and you're using very cheap components for the propulsion system. So what we created was an integrated motor and controller with a position sensor embedded inside. And with this setup, we can do some really interesting motor calibration and control techniques to optimize the performance of the motor and the reliability of the motor. And so, we do things like increase power and efficiency by 10%. We have advanced safety features, robust communication protocols, and we respond much faster and have much higher controllability compared to these standard hobby grade parts. And another advantage we have is that we're one of the only US producers of these controllers. So how we pitch ourselves to our customers and prospects is, we have the superior technology, but we also can act as your propulsion team because we have this expertise, and it's pretty niche expertise. So not too many companies have this in-house. So typically what we'll do is we'll evaluate with the customer by sending them our stock products. They inevitably want some sort of customization because these vehicles are, if you add 1 pound to a vehicle, that might change the propeller size that you're using or the size of the motor. So we do custom contracts with a lot of our customers, and then we move to production and sell them the solution as well as act as their propulsion team. And I have a couple videos here. I hope they load. So this is our biggest customer called Flyability. They make an indoor inspection drone, and it goes in places where it's very dangerous for humans to go. So like nuclear power plants, oil and gas refineries. So you can see our motors on the bottom here. And what's happening here is was previously Flyability's worst nightmare, where their drone would get caught on something and it would tip. And at that point, the other hobby grade parts would just they wouldn't know how to spin when they're, completely vertical like this. And the drone would just fall out of the sky and you'd lose it in a nuclear power plant. And that's essentially, $30,000 up in flames. But with our motors, we can reverse instantly, which is something you see the back couple motors doing in that scenario. And that means you can get stuck like this and it's not really a big deal, and you don't lose this really valuable asset. We also do other cool things. Can I get to the next slide though? Because we have the position sensor, we can do unique control techniques as well for lower speed applications. So this is just a fun little demo we made, where we have essentially 2 robotic arms, one mirroring someone using a pen and writing hello on an iPad or Surface. So because we have the position sensor, we can know exactly where we're positioned and just inform whatever master controller is controlling both of these robotic arms to mirror each other. And I think that's the extent of my presentation. So yeah, right now we're going to bring in about $1 million in revenue this year. We're raising another round of 3 million. And our goal ultimately is to start manufacturing both the motors and controllers here in the US to service all of the drone companies that are popping up. And hopefully have all that manufacturing in Pennsylvania. Michael, you're muted.
There we go. That's fantastic, John. I really appreciate the presentation. Have you, I work with some of the other drone companies that have spun out of Penn, including Exxon and Ghost. And from what I've seen, that 4 or 5 years ago, the drone market was completely overrun, controlled by Chinese manufacturers. Are you seeing a lot more drone companies or actually robot companies come online?
Yeah, the number of companies popping up in the US it's crazy. We come across 2 or 3 new ones every other month. So a lot of them are very much in the startup phase. I would say Exxon is probably more mature than most of the market, and Exxon would call themselves a startup. But yeah, the market, fast forward 10 years, the market's going to be insane. It's going to be like, the electric car market. So we're hoping that, right now our biggest risk is that these companies don't scale as quickly as we're hoping. And so that will kind of stymie sales. But if they do grow quickly, we are positioned to be the motor and controller provider for all of them. And their only other alternative is to go with these kind of cheaper solutions from China. But honestly, the Chinese solutions they're pretty good right now. And we use a Chinese motor manufacturer. They do a good job. And the controller is where we really add a lot of value. There's really no competition right now for what we do on the control side.
That's awesome. And maybe you can talk just a little bit about how Pennovation has played a role in your development and kind of maybe any stories you have from the experience you've had of being here.
Yeah, I mean, it's been pivotal. It's been great. Matt has been there since I think Pennovation even technically opened, because the PhD lab opened up before the center did. So Matt and I are cousins, and we started talking in like early 2017 or early 2016 about spinning out the technology that he was developing in the PhD lab. We just got together, and Matt said, "Hey, I have this office space," and I showed up one day and it was a closet. And yeah, we were crammed in there for 6 months, moved upstairs into what's now the copier room for another 6 months, and then moved across the street. But one thing that's interesting is that Pennovation put on a startup event very early. And I'm sure, as all of the founders know, maybe you don't feel this way, but I always felt like there were so many things to do when you start a company, but also like nothing to do because you don't have any customers, you don't have a product. It's just, and I'm on the business side, so I couldn't like sell anything because we didn't have anything yet. So I was just going to a bunch of events, trying to learn as much as I could. And Pennovation put on an event where I met the first VC that I ever talked to, and they ended up being the lead investor in our seed round and are likely going to be the lead investor in this next round as well. So yeah, it's just little things like that where we could have met and parted ways, but yeah, because of Pennovation, we met, and now they've funded our growth, which is great.
That's fantastic. We try to annually put on a PCI Ventures showcase, the Pennovation showcase for all the companies, so that we can bring in outside partners and parties to be able to introduce the world to what's going on. During COVID, we tried to do some of those virtually. We're going to have another one scheduled soon, because it is a great opportunity for the companies to showcase themselves, which is great. And I think I would also add to that, Jamie Sweet is our associate director of programming, and she's just done such a fantastic job of putting on not just events, but real seminars and classes for all the companies, that they can learn some of the basics and some of the things that they just might not know about running a company. So I think it's fantastic. Well, thank you so much, John. I appreciate it. And that's our last presentation of the day. I think, as you can see, we have a lot of amazing, fantastic companies. In just an hour, we had to pick 5. We have, I think it's somewhere over 70 companies now on the Pennovation Works campus, and we're so excited to have them and be able to be a part of their development and their growth as they move on. I also want to remind everyone, as such a great presentation we had today, we're going to be having another one tomorrow It's the Power of Pennovation Research and Development Panel. So we'd really appreciate everybody could join us for that as well. And I think you'll find it to be as interesting and exciting as today's is. With that, I want to thank everybody for coming today and getting a chance to see these companies. We'd love to have you come down to the center and see what's going on here. We have so much excitement happening on a regular basis. It's a great community of young companies all working together. We love to see examples of our companies getting to know each other, finding ways to work together, and seeing if we can bring them closer together and helping them develop and making sure that everybody feels like they're a part of the adventure together. And that's what we're really aiming to go here. We have great things happening today, but we look to the future in the next 5 years and just get so excited about what we're going to be developing going on. So with that, I thank everyone, and I hope everyone had a great experience and with the call today. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us. Opportunities to come down and visit, take a tour, and look into space that might be available here. So thanks everyone. Have a great rest of your day, and hopefully we'll see you tomorrow.